Window treatments. We've mentioned a lot of things throughout the slides tonight about window treatments and how, the trendier look would be the simpler panels. In this first slide, you can see how important it is to take that drapery rod up to just under the crown molding. Sometimes we do have unusual circumstances where the ceilings are very, very high, and it's hard to have just a firm rule for that. They're really handled in a case-by-case situation. But here, again, it's part of the architecture. Really, bring your eye up with the drapery treatments, and do just notice the other details in this room, the patterned fabric on the out back of the chair, as well as the tape trim on the Parsons chairs, adding that little personal style and detail. I love what they've done in this room. As you can see, the architecture is just beautiful, just fabulous millwork. I wonder if I would have chosen to place the drapery rod exactly as they have done. I think it looks beautiful. I'd like to think that's where I would have placed it. It's a little bit unusual to have such a high crown molding with so much detail. The drapery fabric is just a very playful blue and white silk stripe, which they've also done on the outback of the chair. So getting that pop of the stripe is really playful. And then a natural fiber rug on the floor, and also the contrast of the white painted chairs against the dark wood table. So you can see this is a very fine home with lovely furnishings, but it certainly feels very welcoming and today. In this bedroom, I put this slide in the presentation because I thought it was interesting, again, seeing two different drapery treatments on the fireplace wall and on the wall that the bed is on. I think it's such a great idea to have the Roman shades behind the chest of drawers that are flanking the bed. That way you don't have the depth that you need when you have drapery panels back there, and then that, does collect a lot of dust. We like to think that we sweep behind those bedside tables every week, but I don't know that all of us are able to add that to our list. And then you can also see how nicely the panels look flanking the fireplace wall. And even with your Roman shades, when they're outside mounted, which is most of the time, which I'll point out some of the reasons why as we go along, getting the height on that wall, so as you look around the room, again, they are part of the architecture, and when they are open, you really can get all of the light coming in through the window. Now here is an example of a valance being used. Certainly we see most of the very simple panels, but when there's a need or a desire to have something like that, I certainly enjoy that. I thought this was just a lovely treatment, nice and soft, to put a valance on the very simple panels. And then a few Roman shade ideas. Here they are outside mounted with tape trim on the leading edge that is inset just a little bit and across the bottom as well. If you're doing this treatment, you would want to advise your workroom, or if you're working with a designer, to make sure that the bottom part of the Roman shade does not fold up with the rest of the shade when it is lifted, because you would not get credit for the trim on the very bottom. So you'd always want to make sure that part stayed flat even when it was in the open position. One of those little details I learned early on as a young designer. And in this master bath, this is work by Cindy Whitmer here in Houston. I thought this was just a great idea, having the two sets of drapery panels. The higher one, of course, would be a little more bothersome to have to open and close when you needed the privacy. So what she chose to do was almost like a really high cafe curtain in a more sheer fabric, so it's easier to operate when you do need the privacy without having to close the larger panels. And then a couple of Roman shades here. The woven materials are so popular now, whether it's a torch bamboo look or even some of the softer looks. This particular shade is outside mounted. If you look closely, it's mounted outside the window casing or the window frame. Sometimes your windows don't have quite enough depth to accommodate the headrail, so then you can choose to go outside the molding. In this kitchen, if you look at the bottom of the shade, you can see a little easier how deep this window was, so that made for a very clean application for this inside mounted shade.
Gotta get your style, gotta get your style. Star Furniture.